everybody, it's Laura, and today we are going to do the very basics, the most simple sewing 101. Don't panic, it's going to be okay. This is just to show you how to attach two pieces of something together. I'm using felt here. You can use any fabric you want. Felt I thought would be the easiest because it's very bright and you can see how things go together. Pretty basic. We have string. I'm using a big thick string. You'll probably get a spool of thread when you're going to sew. Let me find you a spool of thread in my bag here. A spool of thread looks like this, and the string is much thinner. But I thought you should see it, so I got you something thinner, or something thicker. What are words, everyone? What are words? Anyway. The first step is always to thread your needle. I'm using a needle with a really big eye today. There, can you see it? It's huge. That's a little harder to get through fabric. So it's not always considered the best choice for hand sewing, but I'm gonna suffer today and I'm gonna suffer for you. Now my thread is too long, but it also happens to have a knot already in it, which today we're gonna use for our advantage. If you're gonna put a knot in something, make a loop like this with your end underneath and your long piece on top. Put your end through the hole. It's the same kind of knot you use to tie your shoe, except there's no shoe in it. And then you've got a nice knot there. Can you see the knot? I can't see what you can see, so there's the knot. You can always then trim your excess. That is one way to start a sewing project. It is a bulky way to start a sewing project. So there are other ways that you can learn later, but right now we're doing this quick, easy, fast. We're doing this the way that you will do it if you have to quickly throw a craft together. You are not doing any kind of sewing exhibition here. So let's say the blue is on the top piece. If it's the top piece, I don't want to stab my needle through like this because that means my knot will be on top. Instead, I'm going to bring my needle up like this. But before I do that, we have to talk about something called seam allowance. Seam allowance is the space you give yourself between the edge of your fabric and where the line of stitching is going to go. Sometimes it's a ½ inch, sometimes it's a1/4 inch. So like your seam allowance could be like that. Your seam allowance could be like this. Usually your seam allowance is like not massive. That's about a 1/4 inch. For you, I would say give yourself enough that you can hold on to it. I'm gonna try and like make it even though I'm not using any way to check that it's even. And because we're not going to use this felt for anything but this demonstration, I'm going to mark it with a Sharpie so that you can actually see what we're doing. There you go. You'll want to use something washable if you do this and you want to use this piece for something. They have something in the sewing aisle at Walmart or any craft store. Go with that. So remember, we are not going down, we're going up. So you want to go up at the edge or as close to the edge as you can. Now I'm not grading you on how perfect your stitches are because again, this is for craft. It's quick, it's easy. We're doing this very simply. We just want something that is going to hold together. So then you want to go down next to it, not too far away, but far enough away that you get a nice stitch. And if your yarn wants to tangle like mine is, it's because it's too long or too thick, which we knew was going in. Now you have your knot on the back and you have a piece coming up like this. And you have a gauge of how big your stitch is. If we are being neat and tidy, we want our stitches to be pretty much the same length. So kind of mentally measure that gap and come up on the other side. Mine are not going to be perfect today because I am working with some really thick thread. This is what my mother always told me was called a running stitch. I'm sure there are other names for it. I don't know what the other names are because honestly, once you learn this, this is pretty much how you're going to stick two things together unless you've got a sewing machine. If you have a sewing machine, why are you watching this? Oh wait, no. You probably want to learn how to do that. I'll show you how to use a sewing machine another day. So that you know how to use one if you come to the library sometime and use our sewing machines, which are available to the public. So if you want to learn how to use the sewing machine, come on down. You can always pin these things together. You'll notice that mine have not stayed completely together the way I had them stacked. That's not something we care about today. Because if you're a cheater like me and you're using this for a craft, you can always trim the excess because that's what cheaters do. So really, all I'm doing is going down, over a little bit, and up, and then down, over a little bit, and up. And I'm doing that the whole way down my line, which again, it cannot wash off because I use a Sharpie. Don't use a Sharpie on your own craft unless you don't care and you're living a chaotic existence. Living that chaotic, evil lifestyle. People who use Sharpies for sewing. I know who you are. I know you're kind. You're like me. Okay. You're getting towards the end. What you gonna do? You're just gonna keep going till you get to the very, very end. Then you're gonna go down. Okay, you have a line of stitching. Isn't that great? I'm impressed. Now turn her over. You can do a knot here. I have never done a knot like that. That's not how I was taught to do it. But you can. There's no reason why you can't. I was taught to kind of catch just one piece of the fabric. Don't go through just one piece of the fabric and go through it and then through it again and then through those stitches as many times as you want for it to feel secure. That's not going to go anywhere. You don't need a knot. Trim it, and now you have like a little felt book. Now, if you're sewing something that you want to like stuff or something like that, you would then fold over like this and press it or iron it, and you see your stitches are completely invisible. That's Sewing 101. Sewing 102 is going to be how to put a button on something. So stay tuned for that because these are life skills that you will need when the button falls off your coat on a trip to Italy. Oh wait, that was just me. Yeah, that was traumatic. All right, practice your simple line like that. There are so many crafts that you can do once you can sew a little bit by hand.